Hey Denchbags, what's going on? It's LandonRemixes here, and welcome to the 12th edition of Rapid Fire Reviews, the series where I try to pump out my thoughts on albums as quick as possible, on albums that I either didn't get time to touch bases on, or really just didn't have much to say about in general. A couple of these I did actually want to do full reviews on, but sadly I wasn't able to get into them. The first album that I'm going to talk about is the newest album from Technimatic called Better Perspective, and if you guys remember, the last Technimatic album, Desire Paths, actually made my top 10 albums of 2014, so obviously I really was looking forward to the coming of this album. But when I got into this, I was actually very, very disappointed, and I couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. I still can't entirely pinpoint what my issues are with it, but I think the main thing is that I just feel like the magic, if that even makes sense, the magic of Desire Paths has kind of been stripped away on this album. Rather than feeling like a fun, unique, horn-filled, liquid drum and bass album, this one kind of sounds like exactly what you'd come to expect with any liquid drum and bass album. Now, of course, there are a lot of points on this album that I really like. There were some really unique tracks on this, but honestly, all in all, that's what you'll get with almost any liquid drum and bass album, and I feel like what Technimatic brought to the table with Desire Paths, I feel like was completely removed from this album, and honestly, it just felt pretty flat. There were a lot of things that I did like about this album, but there's a lot of things that just felt really repetitive and overused in the drum and bass scene. All in all, I'm practically feeling the same way with the new Bustre album, and although I do have a couple different mixed feelings about certain aspects of it, which I'll get to, a lot of the material on this album is basically what you'd come to expect from any liquid drum and bass act. Everything Has an End is supposed to be Bustre's last album, and I feel like he could have done a lot more into this and put a lot more heart than he did into this. As we're seeing him progress into a number of different directions, we see him kind of going into more rock music in the recent days, which seems to be his primary project coming up. And one thing that I really disagreed with him about is the way that he pushed out this album, because this thing is a Bandcamp exclusive. He kind of explained how he didn't want to release this on Monstercat because he wanted to do the album in his own way and everything, which is understandable, but at the same time, Monstercat is a great label with putting things together and kind of shaping artists' careers, and because they were key roles in creating Bustre's popularity, I think for one, they could have both hyped up this album and made this a lot better in terms of design and in overall sound. I just really wasn't crazy about this one. Eptic's Overlord EP is one of those ones that you guys have been requesting like crazy for me to do. In fact, I think it's the most requested item on my channel for this entire year, so I feel really bad if I didn't touch bases on it, so that's why I'm throwing it into rapid fire reviews. I decided a while ago not to do a full review on it just because, honestly, I don't think there's a lot to talk about with this one. Eptic for a while was probably in my top 3 dubstep producers. I really liked his hard bro-step style that he was doing that I feel like a lot of people weren't really doing as successfully, and I really enjoyed his music for the most part, but in more recent months we've kind of seen him, in my opinion, be a little less unique, and that's especially evident on this EP, especially on tracks like Laser 3000 with Abstract, which in terms of sound is 100% what I was expecting to hear from the two. They've done a number of collaborations together in the past, and I don't think any of them have really been too distinct from one another. They're all kind of going for that future-inspired bass house sound, which I'm just really not crazy about at this point in my life. I tended to not like the screechy dubstep bangers as much on this EP. In fact, I think I like the more trap-centric ones a little bit more on this one. I especially loved the future bass-inspired opener Cosmic on this one. A lot of really great production on this one, and I really love the synths, and I also like the track What Have You Done quite a bit. It's one of the more generic probably on the EP, but was overall fairly catchy. Let's talk about Hillsong United of Dirt and Grace. This one is the live version of their Empires album, which, as you guys know, placed #1 in my top 10 albums of 2015 list. I really wanted to take a stab at doing a full review on this, but it's very hard for me to aim at something critically that's just a live version of something that's already been done. Overall, I do think this is an absolutely beautiful rendition of the original album. I really like the concept behind it as well. The band went and recorded the songs in the places that inspired the lyrics behind the songs, which was just absolutely phenomenal. It's even cooler to watch the DVD of this thing and go through and see them playing in the different places, like where Jesus walked and the different things he did throughout his ministry, and how those inspired the lyrics, and how they went to those places and literally played the music there. Was just absolutely incredible to watch. There are actually a couple tracks that I like their renditions better on this album than I did on the Empires album, but there are a number of them which most of them, in my opinion, didn't really live up to what they were doing on the Empires album. Of course, this is an acoustic version, so it's going to be a little bit more laid back, and if you're into that, you're definitely going to love this album. They also switched lead vocalists around track to track quite a bit on this album, which was, although cool, I didn't really like it as much with the new vocalists. I think all of their original placements were really awesome, and I would have loved to see that just straight done for this album. Altogether, it made for a really cool listen. I think it's especially cool to hear the breeze of the wind flowing through the background of the fields, and then there's some water that you can hear in the background, and that's actual water, not just sampled water. This is live recorded stuff that they did, which was really awesome. I definitely suggest giving this one a listen. I essentially avoided reviewing Bassnectar's new album, Unlimited, because I didn't want to sound like a complete idiot, because that's what I'd probably sound like trying to review this thing. This is his 12th album, and since I haven't listened to most of those other 11 albums, with the exception of Noise vs. Beauty, which I listened to a couple times back when it came out just because there was so much hype around it, I really didn't feel like I could give this one a quality review. I also didn't really like a lot of the material on this, so I didn't want to, 1, sound like an idiot, and for 2, sound like an idiot and then give it a bad rating. A lot of the sounds on this album sound pretty outdated to me, but apparently he did that on purpose, so that's another spot where I would have gone wrong. With this one, Bassnectar plays a lot of tribute to his past in music, and I can definitely respect that. I liked a lot of the tracks, including TKO, which is one of the heavier drum step tunes on the album. I also liked his experimentation with trap music across the board here. Although I didn't originally like the Glitch Mob collaboration Paracosm, I ended up liking it quite a bit, returning to this album the second or third time. I'd probably say my favorite on this album is the track Surrender with Halo and Haley, and Haley has done a number of vocal appearances with the house music producer Cascade, and I've really always been into their collaboration, so of course I'm going to like this one when it heads a little bit toward liquid dubstep. Just a really cool way to hear Haley's vocals, and I feel like her style really complements well with Bassnectar's on this one. I also really liked Bassnectar's remix of Rising Rising by Crywolf, the only remix to be featured on this album. Of course, in that case, I'm going to be a little biased just because I really like Crywolf, and this one honestly doesn't sound too far from the original in terms of sound, but it still was pretty enjoyable. I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Rapid Fire Reviews. I'm very sorry I've been so quiet this last week. I've been away at a camp. At this time of recording, it's actually right before then, so I'm trying to pump this out as quick as I can to you guys, but I can only do so much. I'm quickly going to read off the next few reviews just so you guys don't have to keep suggesting them down in the comments. I've seen a number of you guys requesting the same albums over and over, and I just thought I'd get them out the way so you guys don't have to be worried about what's coming and what's not, although they're all probably going to be a little late at this point. I've got Pierce Fulton's Borrowed Lives EP, DJ Snake's Encore album, Zoo's Generation Y, Skillet's Unleashed, Botneck's Connecting EP, and Noisia's Outer Edges, and then after, this should be around the time this video is releasing, these albums are releasing, Borges's 13, his debut album, Party Favors, Party and Destroy EP, and then of course Eden's I Think You Think Too Much of Me EP, which is coming out shortly after I get back in Washington, and I'll have all of those reviews out for you guys to enjoy fairly soon after this video is uploaded. I hope you guys understand the kind of stress I'm going through trying to get these reviews finished while I'm in Maine when I'm so freaking busy with all this crap. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of Rapid Fire Reviews. I'm LandonRemixes, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.